Good morning. This is Mrs. Standridge. I'm here with another episode of Raymie Nightingale. Let's go ahead and get started. 49. Things happened fast then. Adults showed up. Raymie's mother arrived and pulled Raymie into her arms and held her close and rocked her back and forth and back and forth. Beverly's mother showed up next and sat next to Beverly on the curb, the dog in between them. And after a long while, Louisiana's grandmother arrived too. She was wearing her fur coat, and she sat beside Louisiana's bed and held her hand and cried without making any noise at all. Raymie told the story of what had happened again and again, how the shopping cart had gone into the water, and how Louisiana couldn't swim, and how Raymie had pulled her out of the water and pounded her on the back, and how that was something that she had learned from a man named Mr. Stephanopoulos, who taught a class called Life Saving 101. A reporter from the Lister Press showed up. Raymie spelled Elefante for him. She spelled Stephanopoulos. She told him that Clark had an E on the end of it. The reporter took Raymie's picture. And the whole time, Louisiana was asleep in a white hospital bed. She wasn't talking. She had a high fever. But she would be fine. Everyone kept saying that she would be fine. It was Ruthie who said, "This child needs to sleep. Everybody needs to stop asking her questions and let her go home and sleep." But Raymie didn't want to go home. She wanted to be where Louisiana was. So Ruthie brought a cot into Louisiana's room, and Raymie lay down on it. She fell asleep right away. And when she woke up, Louisiana was still sleeping, and Louisiana's grandmother was still wearing her fur coat. She was still holding Louisiana's hand, and she was asleep too. The hallway outside of the room was lit up, shining with afternoon light, just like the common room at the Golden Glen. Raymie got up and stood in the doorway of the room and looked at the bright and shining path. A cat was walking toward her. Raymie stood and stared. The cat came closer and closer. Raymie recognized him from her dream. She recognized him from Mrs. Borkowski's suitcase. It was Archie. The cat brushed past her. He came into the room and leaped up on Louisiana's bed and curled himself into a tight ball. Raymie went and lay back down on her cot. She fell asleep again. When she woke up, it was dusk, and Archie was still curled up at Louisiana's feet. He was purring so loudly that the hospital bed was shaking. Archie, king of the cats, he had returned. Louisiana's fever broke that night. She sat up in bed and said, "Oh my goodness, I'm hungry." Her voice was scratchy. And then she looked down at her feet and saw the cat. "Archie," she said, as if she wasn't surprised at all. She bent forward and pulled him into her arms. She looked around the room. She said, "And there's Granny." She looked at her grandmother, who was sleeping in the chair beside the bed. And then Louisiana looked at Raymie and said, "Raymie Nightingale, there you are too." "Here I am," said Raymie. "Where's Beverly?" "She's at home, taking care of Bunny." "Bunny," said Louisiana in a voice of wonder. "We saved Bunny. Remember how we saved him?" Ruthie came into the room and said, "How did that cat get in here?" "He found me," said Louisiana. "I lost him. He lost me. We went looking for him, and he found me." Raymie closed her eyes and saw Mrs. Borkowski opening the suitcase and pulling Archie out of it. "It's kind of a miracle," she said. "Ain't no miracle," said Ruthie. "It's just a cat. That's how they do." 50. The other thing that happened in the hospital was that the phone rang at the nurse's station, and it was for Raymie. Ruthie came into the room and said, "Somebody on the phone for you, Raymie Clark." Raymie went out into the hallway to the phone. She still had on Ruthie's sweater. It came down to her knees. "Hello," said Raymie. Ruthie was standing right beside Raymie. She put her hand on Raymie's shoulder. "Raymie," said the voice on the other end. "Dad," said Raymie, "I saw your picture. It was in the paper, and I wanted to check on you and make sure." Raymie couldn't think of what to say to him. She stood and held the phone up to her ear. There was nothing but a great silence. It was like listening for the ocean in a seashell and not ever hearing it. It was like that. After a while, Ruthie took the phone out of Raymie's hand and spoke into it. She said, "This child is tired. She has saved somebody from drowning. Do you understand what I'm saying? She saved somebody's life." And then Ruthie hung up the phone. "He is a skunk," she said to Raymie, "and that's all there is to it." She put her hands on Raymie's shoulders. She guided her back to Louisiana's room. Raymie got on her cot and fell back asleep. When she woke up, she wondered if she had dreamed the whole thing. Mostly what she remembered was holding the phone for that long silence. The silence of her father not saying anything, and her not saying anything back. And then, too, she remembered Ruthie's hands on her shoulders, guiding her back to the room where Louisiana was alive and breathing, and a cat was curled up at her feet, sleeping. 51. Louisiana competed in the Little Miss Central Florida tire contest. She wore her lucky bunny barrettes and a blue dress spangled with silver sequins. She did not twirl a baton. She sang "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head." The contest was in the Finch Auditorium. Louisiana's grandmother was there, and Beverly was there, and Beverly's mother, and Raymie's mother, and Raymie. Ida Nee was there, but she did not look happy. Ruthie came from the hospital, and Mrs. Sylvester came from Jim Clark Family Insurance. They all sat together. Raymie's father was not there. Raymie was not surprised. She was only happy when Louisiana won the contest and was crowned Little Miss Central Florida Tire. Later, after Louisiana was presented with a check for $1,975 and also with a sash that said Little Miss Central Florida Tire 1975, Beverly Topinski and Raymie Clark and Louisiana Elefante went to the top of the Belknap Tower, even though Louisiana was afraid of heights. "I'm afraid of heights," said Louisiana, who was still wearing her crown and her sash. She kept her eyes closed and lay on the floor of the observation deck. But Raymie and Beverly stood at the railing and looked out. "See?" said Beverly to Raymie. "Yes," said Raymie. "Tell me what you are seeing," said Louisiana, who was face down on the floor and refused to stand up. "Everything," said Raymie. "Describe it," said Louisiana. Raymie said, "I can see Swit Pond and the swans and Lake Clara and the hospital. I can see the Golden Glen and Jim Clark Family Insurance. I can see Ida Nee's house and the Tag and Bag Grocery. I can see Building 10. "What else?" said Louisiana. "I can see Ida Nee's moose head, and I can see the candy corn jar on Mrs. Sylvester's desk. I can see the ghost of Clara Wingtip. I can see the yellow bird from the Golden Glen." "Is he flying?" said Louisiana. "Yes," said Raymie. "What else?" said Louisiana. "I can see Ida Nee twirling her baton. I can see Ruthie. She's waving at us. And there is Archie and Bunny." "Don't call him Bunny," said Beverly, who had renamed the dog Buddy. After a while, Beverly went and picked Louisiana up and brought her to the railing. "Open your eyes," said Beverly, "and look for yourself." Louisiana opened her eyes. "Oh, my goodness," she said. "We're up so high." "Don't worry," said Beverly. "I'm holding on to you." Raymie took hold of Louisiana's hand. She said, "I've got you too." The three of them stood like that for a long time, looking out at the world. All right, and that's the end. I hope you've enjoyed Raymie Nightingale. I hope you can join me again next time when we'll start on a new book. Hope to see you then. Bye.